is so exciting that millions of people would give up anything to do. And I think that's where it's just disappointing that he just doesn't feel like he's engaged. And he had to get called out to get any better at all this year. And it's like, oh, I guess I do have to like turn it up. People are noticing.
Yeah, I don't and again, it's not like he's bad at it now. He it's just I don't feel like the excitement level gets where I prefer it to get.
Yeah.
Mechanically, still great. And he's always gonna he could sleepwalk through a broadcast. He just sounds like he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But he's coming back. Gonna do another year of it.
Good for him.
Shout out.
Not great for us.
Good for Al Michaels. Speaking of excitement, you walk in here today and you sit down and you just casually go, got a yellow card last night. I'm sorry. We do a radio show. You don't get to just drop that on me and not discuss this. You're not playing soccer.
Nope.
You weren't even coaching soccer.
No.
And you received a yellow card.
Yes.
Please explain.
We had a play in a high school game where, my son is a coach and my youngest son plays, but he wasn't playing in this specific game. And a kid fell down in the box for the other team, and they didn't call a foul when he fell down, but then he decided to keep trying to kick the ball while he was on the ground, and a player for my son's team decided to clear the ball and kicked the ball, and their shin guards clicked because they both were kicking at the ball while one kid was on the ground. And instead of like stopping the game for an unsafe play because the kid is sitting there on the ground kicking,
the ground,
right, and done it, he could have done a drop ball, or he could have just said, "Hey," awarded the ball to my son's team. They called a penalty in the box and gave him a PK.
What?
It was absolutely ridiculous. And,
that's insane.
And so they gave up the PK. Of course, he scores a goal, and then my son and his co-coaching partner asked for an explanation, and the guy came over and explained why he did that. And it's like, okay, but that's not like what you're calling. It's not a rule. So like a minute later, there was some other play, and I decided to make a snarky remark from the stands. So he halted the game, came over to the sidelines, and warned the coaches that I had to stop talking, or they would. So I technically don't get a yellow card. The coaches get a yellow card.
Hilarious.
So my son has to come over. Like, he's looking at me. I'm like, did he give you a decent explanation at least? He's like, no, it wasn't a decent explanation. I'm like, I'm good. I won't get in any more trouble. He's like, all right. So he walks back over. This isn't the first time I've ever had a ref like say, hey, or I have been in the stands while a ref has like said, hey, enough.
I would like to pause your story.
Yep.
Because I'm envisioning this happening at my high school. Like, that's my reference point for a high school soccer match.
Okay, so let me set the stage before,
please, because in my head I've got field, track, little ramp, stands.
Exactly. But you also have to remember that in soccer, it's not like football. In soccer, there's like 30 of us in the stands total.
But still, you gotta project.
Well, you've heard me sing karaoke. There. You know I can project.
But that's it's not that you can or can't. It's that you did.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I wanted to make sure the official heard it because there was another play that he called right after that should have been fouled the other way. And it's like, hey, man, call it both ways. Yeah.
So you yelled again.
No, I yelled the second time when he didn't call something.
And then you got the yellow.
And then I got the yellow. Yeah.
Wow.
I can, my voice can carry. That's for sure. It was fun.
Your son is not playing in this game. He's coaching.
Oh, yeah, he's coaching. But, I help out with the soccer team. I do fundraising for the soccer team. So
you've earned a yellow card.
Well,
Like,
and
I've
then
done enough fundraising that I can get a yellow.
exactly. I mean, if it was
If
one
you'd sold
more,
10 more candy bars, you'd have been able to get a red
so they get a yellow,
or
right?
coupon cards or
But
whatever they sell now. I don't
there's
know.
2. Yeah, we decided not to do that. Just give us cash because nobody
That's
wants
the
any of that
move,
stuff.
dude. That's
Nobody
what I'm
wants
saying.
any of that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So they can give, as long as you have 2 coaches, they can give a yellow to one coach and then give a yellow to the other coach. And then if you get another one, then one of those coaches gets a red card and is not only out for that game but for the next game.
Dang.
Yeah.
So
and then
it
almost
So
happened.
does he carry the yellow into the next game?
Maybe. I that's a good question.
Oh boy, you got to find that out. If you're gonna chirp, you got to find that out. It could cause a real incident.
It's all in fun. And there was someone else on our sidelines maybe 5 minutes later that yelled something as well. The guy stopped the game again. Like, you got to have thicker skin if you're an official.
Mhm.
There was no profanity. There was no crazy. There was no berating him for 3 minutes straight. Like, straight up, the guy's just way too emotional as an official. And he made a bad call, and he knows he made a bad call, and then he sits there and tries to defend himself by making other bad calls.
Makes other mistakes on top of it. Nice. Love that kind of official. Speaking of trying to officiate games, the state of Ohio, and I'm putting this on the entire state.
All of them.
Not the Ohio State University. I'm putting this on the entire state of Ohio.
The Ohio State.
The state of Ohio is exhibiting the most loser behavior I've ever seen after a sports loss. And I've seen a lot of loser behavior after a sports loss. Trust me. Been there. Been it. Been the loser doing the behavior. But if you'll recall, after Michigan beat Ohio State for the 4th consecutive year, they planted a Michigan flag at midfield at the Horseshoe at Ohio Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And a fight ensued. Pepper spray was involved. You got Michigan players being threatened to get tased. Just insanity. Obviously, that can't happen. You can't be having fights like melees after games, because that wasn't the only game where that happened. It happened multiple times.
Okay.
State Representative Josh Williams in Ohio has introduced the OHIO Sportsmanship Act. And that would make it a felony. Now, real quick, I'm gonna fast forward to the end here. This was introduced so late that there's no real chance it passes. It'll have time to pass, and to get it passed, they would have to reintroduce it in their next session. But anyways, it would make it a felony to plant a flag at the center of Ohio Stadium. That's Ohio Stadium, capital O, capital S. That's not all Ohio stadiums.
Oh,
That's not the University of Ohio. That's not the University of Cincinnati. That's not Oberlin College. That's not, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other.
Would be amazing if Michigan from
Miami
here
of
on
Ohio
out just went to those other schools after on a victory tour and planted a flag.
Like, didn't do it in the shoe though.
Didn't get it there.
So
is this a misdemeanor?
So this bill would only apply to Ohio Stadium. And I've never, like, that game happened 2 weeks ago. This is such loser behavior. And you can couch it in, well, we're trying to stop fights. No, you're not.
Nope.
Because if you were doing that, you would have done something statewide. It still would have been loser behavior, but still. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Now you're bringing this back to the forefront. You're giving Michigan fans more verbal ammunition to make fun of you. This isn't going to make anything better. This is going to make it exponentially worse.
I agree.
What are you doing?
I don't know. They're going to think of other ways to plant a flag without planting a flag.
What's the goal here? Yeah, right.
Somebody thought that it would be great to get more famous as a politician.
Guess. Man, and then I had not seen this. Ryan Day, Ohio State's coach.
Okay.
His loser ass. Here was his response. I mean, obviously it's a touchy subject because of the way the game ended, but I think that's up for the Big Ten commissioner and the guys at the Big Ten to decide and figure out what's best. We certainly don't want situations like that going on after the game. Then control your dudes.
Yeah.
Be a leader. Learn how to lose. You got punked at home by your biggest rival. You, Ryan Day, said we're going to hang 100 on him. And then the 4 years since then haven't scored 100 points against Michigan total. Like, you're catching so many L's here. And you're going, well, they got to do something about it. We just can't have that. No, you can't have that. You, Ryan Day, can't have that. You need to be better. We need putting this on the Big Ten and Josh Williams in the Ohio State State House. What? Oh, we can't have that. Yeah, exactly.
What you need is
control your dudes. Go win.
Is your own flag to plant in Michigan's field when you win.
Right.
But that means you have to win.
This is how it goes. And I understand it's highly charged and it's emotional. I'm sure the guys have been talking trash all game and talking trash all week. And there's now a bunch of Ohio State dudes, an entire graduating class that never beat Michigan. Brutal. And I'm sure there are people who go to Ohio State specifically just to beat Michigan. Like, you want to win. You want to be part of the scarlet and gray or whatever the heck they call their colors. But
yep.
Like, you want to beat Michigan. Like, that's it. Michigan fans, same deal. They've been mid all season, but like, yeah, beat Ohio State though, so successful year. So I get, like, it's high energy, it's emotional, but it's not the flag planting that's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's the melee that ensued because your dudes couldn't handle it.
Luckily, there was a Michigan alumni that saved the flag. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, it was like an equipment manager.
Yeah, somebody went and ran and saved the flag that was getting destroyed, I believe.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah. Big thumbs down. And look, in the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, I didn't go to either school. I'm not a fan of either school. Mm-hmm. I tend to lean Ohio State. But, like, I can't. I mean, it's nigh impossible now after all of this. Fighting after the flag thing, okay, that's kind of lame. Like, you lost. You gotta be better than that. This now, we're trying to make it a felony?
That's
felony?
Wild. That's wild.
Person plants a flag, they get convicted, they can no longer vote?
Or carry a firearm.
You're gonna make them a felon because they talked a little trash?
They can't get a job.
That's ridiculous.
They go to the big house because they planted a flag on your field.
Like, go. Oh, man, it says here you're a felon. What'd you do? Well, beat the hell out of Ohio State and let them know it.
Let me tell you about that. It's like that scene from Ant-Man where he gets fired from Baskin Robbins.
Let's say this bill passes this in the state of Ohio eventually.
Yep.
Ohio State player runs and plants their flag at midfield. Felon?
Oh. A felon?
Or is that going to be verbiage in the law that, like, an Ohio State flag is okay?
Outside of an Ohio State flag.
There's going to be the list of approved flags to plant at midfield.
That's wild.
It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely wild.
I was reading that this morning. I was like, no way this is real. There's no way. And the worst part is the fact that it's because I was reading it and I'm going, wait, this can't be a real thing. And then you read it and it's people from the state going, yeah, it's too late. It's not gonna. This is not gonna pass.
It's dumb either way.
Right, which makes it worse. That makes it worse to me. That means you did this in some blustery show of.
Look what I did something.
Loserdom.
I did something. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man. You introduced a bill that shows that you are a lame ass.
I'm waiting for
whatever
for the Dallas Cowboys and maybe Ted Cruz or someone to stop Terrell Owens from standing in the middle of the star. Where was that? That should have been a felony right there.
That was great.
Felony act.
That's great. I loved that so much.
I did.
Shout out to T.O.
I did as well.
Shout out to T.O. for multiple reasons.
Multiple reasons. Yeah. Salute T.O. who had the tweet of the day yesterday.
Yeah,
go find Terrell Owens' tweets.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insiders. We are live here in Sacramento every day from 10 a.m. until noon. Please subscribe to the James Ham and Kyle Madsen Show podcast It's a podcast version of this program. You can catch up on anything you missed. We post each hour and the full show. Or if you want to revisit something, you can go back and revisit it. Again, that is available wherever you get your podcast. It's the James Ham and Kyle Madsen Show. Thank you, everybody listening on ESPN 1320 AM on your radio dial. Maybe you're listening on the free Odyssey app. Appreciate you and everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch. Salute, hello, good morning. YouTube.com/ESPN 1320, Twitch.tv/ESPN 1320. Like, subscribe, do all of that jazz. We would appreciate the heck out of it. All right. The Athletic put out a front office, a poll of front office members, league executives, and they ranked the top 18 front offices in the NBA by this anonymous poll.
Okay, well, there were 18 that were ranked because of the poll.
Yes.
So
that's it. Yeah, that's it. I said rank the top 18. They ranked the NBA front offices, and there were 18 that received votes in this poll.
Exactly.
And then they ranked those based on the votes. The Sacramento Kings came in at number. Oh, wait. Check. They did not.
They did not.
The
build-up there was good.
They received no votes.
They received no votes.
The final team to receive votes was there were 3 teams. Oh, I'm sorry. It went to 19. 3 teams tied for 19th. The Denver Nuggets, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Washington Wizards.
Wait, the Wizards received a vote?
Yes.
They received a vote, but the Kings didn't.
Yes, correct. I'm trying to see. Okay. Let's see. The Wizards apparently thought so too because they hired Michael Winger from LA in May of 2023 to run their own flagging operation. Don't run that flagging operation in the state of Ohio. Winger's down to the studs rebuild is still in its early phases, but the moves, including trading Bradley Beal and Denny Avdija for draft capital, earned enough respect from at least one voter to make the list.
Oh.
Honestly, what'd they get for Denny Avdija? First and Malcolm Brogdon?
No, 2 firsts.
2 firsts? That's a good move. That's a good move.
I totally agree. That was a good move.
So here's where I don't want to get into the machinations of disrespect and this and that. Because the process here was canvass 40 executives around across the league, presidents, general managers, VPs, and assistant GMs to rank the NBA's top front offices. Each executive ranked their top 5. And points were allotted the same way they are in MVP voting, 10 for first place, 7 for second place, et cetera, et cetera. So the Kings didn't receive a vote.
Nope.
My question is less like, why didn't they receive any votes? My question is more like, what can they do to climb up that list in your mind?
Okay, so I don't have like last year's list or the year before's list, but
Sure.
like Monty McNair won Executive of the Year like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly he would have been on this list somewhere.
Yeah, you would think so.
There would have been someone who had given him a vote. And I do think that it's, you have some teams, some of the execs that are really high on this. They're like a little bit of legacy, right? Like Sam Presti with OKC is number 1. And he's number 1, even though he hasn't won a title or anything. He's number 1 because everyone loves the way that he's rebuilt the roster.
That's it. And that's honestly why I think the Kings aren't here. Because so much of what you're either dominant and getting votes, or you're in the midst of a full rebuild. And the Kings are not, they're closer to being a contender than being in a rebuild. But I feel like when you're in just kind of that space between those two things, you're just not top of mind when people are voting for best front offices.
No, I get you, but like if you're going to have 19 teams and it's going to include the Wizards, who realistically are not a good franchise and are going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA for like the 3rd or 4th consecutive year, like that doesn't make any sense. I mean, that is still the team that traded for Jordan Poole's contract. It's still the team that has made countless errors. Now, have they been able to asset collect a little bit? Sure. Yeah.
Talking about the Wizards?
Yeah, talking about the Wizards.
Well, they said they hired a new GM.
Yeah.
and they've started a teardown.
No, I get that, but at the same time, like the Sacramento Kings are a team that built a team, and I would say if Monty's going to get dinged for anything, it's that he built a team 2 years ago and it really hasn't changed.
That's what I think it is.
Now he did go out and get DeMar DeRozan during the offseason, but I think a lot of people around the league, again, you spent money on a 35-year-old that whether he impacts winning at the highest level or not is yet to be seen for the Sacramento Kings team. But outside of that, it's the same team from the year before. I think you also probably maybe lose a little bit just for your draft pick because no one's seen him yet. So I don't think that there's a whole lot that you can judge Monty from in a positive way, but still the top 19, 19 teams got to vote. The Kings probably could have been in that top 19. I'm not putting the Kings front office outside of the top 15 in the NBA.
I guess for me, when you kind of start looking like Pat Riley is in here and the Heat,
yeah,
because they figure out a way to be competitive every year. The other thing that always jumps out is assets. Like people love assets. What assets do you have? And if you've not yet used those assets, it's like, damn, that guy has accumulated assets like crazy.
That's Sam Presti.
Yeah, well, I will give Sam Presti way more credit than you because he built the first version of the Thunder with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and James Harden. And since then, he's not only accumulated assets, but he's turned those assets into Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. And they traded Josh Giddey, which then became Alex Caruso. They signed Isaiah Hartenstein. Like they have a loaded rotation because Sam Presti has used those picks wisely, and now they're the favorite to come out of the West.
No, I totally agree. Like I'm not trying to demean what Sam Presti's done, but I also think there is a point where you've got to be aggressive with your picks because they've also drafted, I don't know, 5 or 6 first-round picks over the last few years that are just no longer on the team.
Every team does that, though.
Yeah,
when you're taking more shots at the board, you're going to miss.
No, it's true. They do the laws of averages, but could you have used those picks in a better way?
Who does a better job than Sam Presti? And the OKC front office, I should say.
For me, the one other the team that comes in number 2 is Boston.
Yeah, they were number 2 by a lot.
Yeah, because
it was OKC 1, Boston 2, Miami 3.
Boston's done a really nice job of hitting on the younger prospects too. The guys like Peyton Pritchard, guys who fill out your rotation that play minutes outside of the 2 top dogs that they got, which were both great picks. But the other guys, and then they're bold enough to go out and get Drew Holiday to put you over them, to take a flyer on Kristaps Porzingis,
and then you get guys like Sam Hauser who can play.
Yeah.
And you get Peyton Pritchard, who's apparently just going to be the 6th man of the year.
Well, even Neemias Queta, they go out and they pick up a Neemias Queta, and the guy plays rotational minutes for him on half the season. And that's impressive.
Yeah, I'd really love to know. And this is where it says it's 40 NBA executives who got polled here.
Yeah.
I would love to know the thought process because I do think that so much of what people look at is assets.
Yeah.
And if you're doing research for this, you're going, okay, hey, who has 1st round picks? Who has 2nd round picks?
I would even say
that's where I think the Kings fall short.
The other guy that I would put up really high in this is Raphael Stone from the Rockets. Like what the Rockets have built out of nowhere,
Houston,
and how stacked they are with talent is just crazy. And I don't know what their pick situation is, but I don't think it's bad. And I think they're a team that's primed to make even more moves because they've got prospects that a lot of teams would like to acquire. And they have NBA ready players that
This is here. We have a step aside for a second. This is where you brought up the Rockets. I want to continue talking about that, and then diving into the Kings pick situation because I think that's going to play a huge role in what kind of activity we see from them on the trade market this season. That's James. I'm Kyle. We'll be back in 1 second. This is the Insiders. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. It's ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader.
And Houston has all kinds of picks. They have a 2026 pick to OKC or Philly, but they have a 2025 pick from OKC or Phoenix. That's a pick swap. Oh, wow. Oklahoma City has the right to swap a 2025 first round pick for Houston's 2025 first round pick, protected 1 through 10, or the Clippers' first round pick. Houston then has the right to swap its pick or the OKC pick to Brooklyn for Phoenix's 2025 first round pick. Boy, this is complicated. There's a lot going on here. Hi, Spencer.
Morning, Spencer.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Way too much to go through. They do have a first round pick from Phoenix in 2027. They have another pick swap 2027. They also have a first round pick from Dallas and or Phoenix. Two most favorable of these, Houston, and Houston's out going to Brooklyn. Boy, this is complicated. Asset collection. Mustache Spider. Would I trust Monty to do a rebuild? All we know is he likes to drop point guards. Yeah, I mean, somebody shows you they can put a team together once. You kind of want to see if they can do it again. But I would rather not be in a situation where you need to do it again. I'd rather you figure out a way to avoid a rebuild at this point and build this team. Yes, Tony, the Kings were in on Juan Soto.
No.
No, but I think he said something about it yesterday. I mean, day before at the game that he's probably like 2 weeks out. Like as soon as we hit January. Shoeless. I will tell you that they tried very hard in both of these drafts to move the pick. Like they made the picks. Like again, Davion never heard from the Kings, never met with the Kings, never worked out for the Kings before he was drafted in Sacramento. At all. Was shocked. Devin Carter wasn't shocked. He knew he had a good workout in Sacramento. And he worked out with a bad shoulder. You guys going crazy here in the chat.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
James is there. I'm Kyle. Hello, good morning, everybody. Before we dive back into the I don't want to say GM survey, the top 10 front offices in the NBA, according to 40 NBA executives and coaches, produced by The Athletic. We mentioned the Rockets right before we stepped aside for a second. And I want to talk about the Rockets in the context of this entire thing, because the Kings did not receive any votes. These 40 executives put their top 5. The Kings did not receive even a single 5th place vote. So we're trying to get to kind of what that all means. So before we get into that, I want to remind everybody to join ESPN 1320 in making a child's holiday season that much brighter with delivering Christmas. You can drop off new unwrapped toys at our ESPN 1320 studios located here at 3010 Lava Ridge Court in Roseville. We're doing that through Friday, so we're open 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. All of those toys are going to stay local. They're going to benefit Stanford Sierra youth and families. Stanford Sierra especially needs unwrapped presents for older youth ages 12 to 18 years old. So if you want to snag those and drop them off at our Odyssey Sacramento studios, 3010 Lava Ridge Court in Roseville, we would appreciate you immensely in helping us deliver Christmas.
Amazing.
So you mentioned the Houston Rockets, who I am with you. They have done a sensational job. They have, I don't want to say they've built it the right way, but they have picked a route and they have executed that route successfully.
Yeah.
There's not one right way to build a team.
No, I totally agree.
They've done what they want to do the right way. You know where Houston landed?
No.
Tied for 11th.
Yeah.
That's where I wonder. It's Houston has emerged as a force in the West this season after trading James Harden in 2021 and rebuilding through the draft under general manager Raphael Stone. Nabbing young stars such as Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., and Tari Eason. In 2023, the Rockets worked free agency to grab Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks as veteran linchpins and added an elite coach in Udoka. They can't sneak into they can't get enough votes to get into the top 10?
Well, that's where I want to know what the real question is of this.
Yeah.
You know, like the top 5, that makes sense because some of the time you're looking at legacy. So you are looking at what Pat Riley has done.
Miami Heat Heat were number 3.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because they've searched high and low and found prospects nonstop for years. Even the Jaime Jaquez pick is a really, really nice pick.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I would also put, the Spurs up there. The Spurs have found ways. They've also drafted number 1 overall multiple times. And the times that they draft number 1 overall, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Victor Wembanyama.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Here's your reset button.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Have the greatest big man in the game for whatever. They have a way of stumbling into it. But for me, what Houston's done is absolutely incredible. And it's tough to judge because look at how many top tier picks they have. I mean, Şengün is hit, right? And that's a 14, 15, 16 pick.
Yeah.
That's if you can find great value there, that's a home run.
Yeah.
Right. And Tari Eason, same thing. He's between 15 and 20. Eason is. But they also Amen Thompson was the number 4 pick. Jalen Green was the number 2 pick. Yeah. Number 2 pick. Jabari Smith Jr. was number 3.
Yeah. Eason was 17th.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, but you're balancing out even the Reed Shepherd pick, which we don't know how is going to work out, but 3rd overall. So we're talking a 2nd in Green, a 4th in Thompson, a 3rd in Jalen Smith and Jabari Smith and Reed Shepherd. We're talking about again the number 3 overall pick. So when you're building, if you can get 4 top 4 picks over the course of a stretch, you're probably going to be pretty good. And especially if you hit with a couple of other really nice selections along the way.
So I want to spin this into this year's trade deadline, because I think that's part of where we're going to see the Kings, if there's a future version of this ranking, the way they're going to land there is improving, because a 12-13 start hasn't been great. They ran it back last year, quote unquote, ran it back last year. This year they make the move for DeMar DeRozan, but I'm of the mind that they need to make some kind of move, and I think you're here too. If you're not, let me know. I'm of the mind they have to make some kind of move if they want to get into that contender, that championship contender tier. So, we didn't really get into this yesterday. We talked about some trade ideas and some possibilities, but last year it was pretty cut and dry what the Kings' pick situation was. If they made the playoffs, Atlanta got the pick. If they didn't make the playoffs, they kept the pick. So they didn't make the playoffs. They kept the pick. Where does that land now this year? And what does it mean for their pick availability at this year's deadline?
Okay, so right now the Kings still owe Atlanta a first-round pick.
Right.
It's top 12 protected in 2025 and top 10 protected in 2026. If it doesn't convey in 2026, it becomes, I think, 2 second-round picks. And so that means that the Kings, technically speaking, can't trade their 2027. They can't trade 25, 26, or 27 because of the Stepien rule. They can't trade back-to-back first-round picks, which means if there's a way that you don't convey your pick this year and you do convey it the next year, that you can't convey your 2026 and trade your 2027 as well, because that would mean 2 consecutive years. So they can technically say, hey, you get our 2027, but there's language in the trade that says, but if for some reason that pick is not available, you would get our 2028. So the Kings have their 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, and then their 2031 has a pick swap on it. They can still trade that pick.
From the Harrison Barnes trade.
That's the Harrison Barnes trade where they got somebody to switch out. And yeah. So the Harrison Barnes trade, the San Antonio Spurs have the opportunity in that draft to take the Kings pick and the Spurs take their
right.
And I don't think that's protected, like from what I know. So yeah, that's a bit of a tough one.
That's dicey. But
I'll,
that's also 7 years down the road.
It is, but it's also when Victor Wembanyama should be in his prime and the best player in the world, and you could have to swap picks with them. I think San Antonio, like it's stuff like that San Antonio does, that's just sneaky good.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're banking on, I'm sure they have pick swap trades for 28, 29, 30 with teams when Victor Wembanyama is going to hit his prime.
Now, so the Kings, theoretically, if they were going to give up 2 first-round picks in a trade, it'd have to be 27 and 29?
27. Well, they can give up 3. They can give up 27, 29, and 31. But it would have to be with an asterisk. And that asterisk would say 27. It could be 28 and 30. You can't do 32. So that would be the only. You can only go 7 years out with your trades.
That seems like the kind of thing that would hold up a deal. Where a team's like, hey, we can for sure get a 26 and a 28, or we can do a 27 and a 29 that might be a 28 and a 30.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. And even if you say, hey, they could get 27, 29, and 31, but again, that 31 has a pick swap. That makes it really difficult. But
potentially with a great Spurs team.
Yeah. Now we're talking about a very, very high-end trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that the Kings are playing in that market right now. Like Brandon Ingram is not 3 first-round picks.
No.
I mean, not only is he ankle bad, but like the conversation that Shams had yesterday about him turning down a deal for $50 million, and then this summer turned down another deal from the Pelicans for $40 million. Like that's what he wants. He wants in the $40 million plus range.
Apparently,
he wants max money, and his people want max money. He just moved over to Clutch, and so there's going to be like a very big conversation about how much money he wants. And if you're trading for Brandon Ingram, you're not guaranteed of anything.
Sure,
he's a free agent at the end of the year. You'd have his Larry Bird rights, and you can go above and beyond to sign him and go above the luxury tax. But what you don't have is a guarantee that he would sign. So you would
Sure.
want that in a conversation building up to it. And I think you can extend him when you do trade for him. There's a window where you can't. But either way, like that's a risky play.
Yeah.
And so you're not giving up 3 first-round picks. I don't know that there is at this deadline like a 3 first-round pick trade out there.
Right. Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
you're probably correct. Where I do think not to the level of 2 or 3 first round picks, but I do think when we talk about Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith, whenever those names come up and you see reporting around it, it's like 7 teams that figure to be involved.
Well, yeah,
And
but
I look at Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith specifically from the Nets, and I have an idea of, yeah, hey, the Kings just make the salaries work and include Devin Carter. It's basically including a first round pick, and you can make that happen. But I also kind of wonder if we're going to see the trade market inflated because of that, where you have so many teams that are kind of like right there on the edge, and you have teams in the East. Well, you have the Cooper Flag component of all this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have teams in the East who might be looking and going, yeah, hey, you know what? This is a terrible conference. Maybe we can be the team that trades and jumps up. But then you've got a bunch of teams in the West too that are going, yeah, man, OKC is really good, but is anyone that dominant in the West that you're going, no chance, we can't do it?
No.
I think you're going to see. There's going to be several teams I think trying to be buyers at the deadline, and I kind of wonder if whatever those guys get traded for, and maybe it's the Kings making the deal, but I do wonder if I have an idea of what that trade would look like in my head, if it also includes a pick or two, because that's just what the market dictates.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the market is heading, and I think the Nets are in a very good situation because they're one of the few teams that have already stepped up and said, "Hey, we're sellers."
Mm-hmm.
And again, you can look at Washington and say, "Oh, Washington's probably a seller too." And you get to December 15th, and they can trade Valanciunas. So there's one of the best big men options on the market that you can go get for reasonably cheap contract. I think he signed a $10 million a year deal for 2 years or something. It's nothing like extreme.
Sure.
So, and on top of that, they've got Kuzma, but again, now we're talking about the same types of players that teams have passed on in the past. Like there's not a robust market for Kyle Kuzma. The Kings have been linked to Kuzma in the past, but
okay, I was gonna ask, is that still a thing?
No, well, not that I've heard.
Because during sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
Because during the draft, it was like, hey, this is close.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. But like, there are people within the walls that just think he's an inefficient player, and so they're not willing to bring in a guy with some question marks on him. It's not just that again, every year he gets a little bit older. Every year, his contract it has a declining scale, and so it gets a better looking.
Sure.
But at the same time, if he doesn't fit what you're doing, or you think that he could be a disruption, then is it worth it? And I think Kyle Kuzma is a very, very good offensive player, and I think he would fit in a lot of situations. But I also does he fit with a team that has a DeMar DeRozan? Does he fit with a team that already can drop 140 on any given night? And is that the best use of your assets?
Sure.
And, I think more of a two-way player or multiple two-way players is the way that I would lean towards helping this team. And that's because you went out and got DeMar DeRozan. Like before DeRozan, I could very well see a world in which Kyle Kuzma and Keegan Murray would make a very nice forward combo. But that's not the world we're living in. Like if you were to trade for Kyle Kuzma, he's coming off the bench.
Right.
Or DeMar DeRozan's coming off the bench. Or Keegan Murray's coming off the bench, and now you don't have any defensive players outside of De'Aaron Fox in your starting lineup. So that's, I don't think, what you're hoping to do.
For what it's worth, betonline.ag has the Kings at 16-1 to be the team that lands Kyle Kuzma.
That's
I don't
crazy.
think that's happening. It's not anymore.
I think there are
I
better
got lost. Sorry.
there are better ways for the Kings to get involved in the market than Kyle Kuzma. And that's not
What do you
say,
mean?
like I think that again, going to the Nets and figuring out a
Oh,
deal with
sure,
the
sure,
Nets.
sure.
So
Gotcha. Okay.
if the Nets are open for business and you have assets that you can move to them, like why not? Like this is about like straight up, it's about making your team better. Like
Mhm.
that's the goal. It's like
Mhm.
how do you figure out ways to
There's and
improve
that's
the roster?
and that's so we're gonna get into this a little bit later. We can just dive in now. ESPN posted its power rankings, which I always think is interesting, just to kind of get a outsider's view of what's happening with the Kings.
Mhm.
He's not a person who's in Sacramento or around the team every day, and they're ranked at number 19. And we can get into the rankings and who are they better or worse or whatever in a second. But the biggest issue that they cited is opponent 3-point shooting.
Mhm.
And I think it was Kevin Pelton, I think is who did the little write up, mentioned that they've been in the bottom 5 in opponent 3-point percentage in the last 4 years. And when we start talking trades, I know that our guy Kenny Caraway, D'Lo and Casey coming up here at noon. He always talks about like don't care about defense, who can put the ball in the hoop.
Mhm.
To me, it now becomes about defense. And when we start talking about trades, it's exactly what you were saying about Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma fit when we were looking at, hey, this team needs another scorer.
Yeah.
Kyle Kuzma could be that dude at the right price and this and that. We talked about it ad nauseum. But now I look and you say, how does this team get better? It's not another scorer. It's Cam Johnson, good defender, switchable defender, versatile defender, can also shoot the hell out of the 3 ball.
Can score.
Can score. Like that to me now, when you start talking improvements, that's where they have to improve. I don't care that you find an upgrade over Kevin Huerter if that upgrade is, well, they're a more versatile scorer. They still can't play a lick of defense. That doesn't help me. That doesn't move me.
No, I'm with you, and I mean it really, like Kevin Huerter the last couple of games, that type of guy, like the Kings need. They just need this other piece as well. And so you got to figure out ways to.
What do you mean that type of guy?
Well,
who are you talking about?
Kevin Huerter. They still need a scorer off the bench because you just moved Malik Monk into the starting lineup. It's just you're also going to need a point guard to kind of run that thing. And then you still need defensive players. Like when it gets down to it, like the reason why the Dallas Mavericks, as much as Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, the reason why the Dallas Mavericks made it all the way to the NBA Finals is because of their 2 big men that played extremely well in Gafford and Derek Lively. And then Derek Jones Jr.'s versatility at the 3 was tremendous for them. It's the same reason why the Clippers load up with these types of guys, why they wouldn't pay Derek Jones Jr. And even the Najee Marshall pickup this year to replace Derek Jones.
He's been
Jr.
really good.
Yeah, he's been really good, but that's also like that's what the NBA is moving towards. It's moving towards 6'7" to 6'9" versatile wings that can defend multiple positions and slow down a De'Aaron Fox when you need him to.
That's what I've not really understood about what the Kings have been doing over the last couple of years, because it's been trending that way for a long time. It's been, and you're going to have your freaks like Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kevin Durant who do all the 6'7" wing stuff at 7 foot and above. But it's been trending toward, versatility at the wings, defensive versatility at the wings, and 3-point shooting. Like that's been a thing for a decade now. And that's my biggest concern with Sacramento, is that they become some version of the Portland Trailblazers, where they were like right there on the cusp, but they just consistently didn't have the wing depth to kind of get over the hump. And that's where we were talking front offices a little bit earlier. And if you're trying to figure out, okay, what are the Kings, what have the Kings maybe done or not done that doesn't get them a vote in this poll of 40 executives and coaches? Like that's the thing to me. Keegan Murray was a really nice pick at number 4, especially when you had a player like Jaden Ivey, who, like, man, that's enticing. The highlight reel's crazy.
Yep.
The ceiling is super high, but you know what? Keegan can just play. He fits. And then when that was like, I need another one, another two. And they just haven't done that well enough.
Okay, so when I look at the way that Monty McNair attacks, like whether it's to draft or free agency or the way he team builds, to be honest, the guy it really reminds me of is Jeff Petrie. And that's because Monty likes versatile players that can shoot, that can pass, that have high basketball IQs, right? And that's not to say that every super athletic player in the NBA doesn't have a high basketball IQ, but there's specific types of players that Jeff Petrie look for. And we can talk about whether it's like finding Peja, but then going out and instead of getting a super athlete, you got Hito Turkoglu. And then when you did have a late 20s pick, you took Gerald Wallace, but Gerald Wallace, no one was ever comfortable playing here in Sacramento. He was that super athlete that we're talking about. And so when I look at the way like the Houston Rockets have made their picks, they've taken a bunch of super athletes. Same thing with Detroit, a bunch of super athletes. But some of those guys, they don't ever develop. Sure. And if they're not in the right system, or if they're not in the right, if they don't have the right coach to, have them focusing on defense or doing whatever, then sometimes those picks just fall by the wayside and they don't work out. Where, the safer bet is kind of what Monty goes for. It's also about the age of the team and trying to improve the team as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
You're not going with 18, 19-year-old guys who can jump out of the gym.
They're in a weird spot.
Yeah, but it doesn't change the fact that you still need to find some of those guys.
No doubt.
And that's the problem. I mean, like the only 6'7" guy I can remember. Okay, so they signed Isaac Jones in the offseason as an undrafted free agent.
Right.
But what's the other even second round
Isaiah
pick?
Crawford?
No, Isaiah Crawford again, undrafted rookie, but second round pick. The only guy who's 6'7" is Jalen Slauson. And
he's not even here.
And what Robert Woodard was 6'6", 6'5".
Sure.
But they don't even draft those guys that fit this model of what every other high end playoff team has.
They draft Devin Carter.
Well, yeah, they exactly. But I don't think that drafting Devin Carter is a difference over, say, Dalton Connect. Is a difference between you winning the NBA championship or not. There's no way to win the NBA championship against a team like Boston if you don't have long athletic defenders to match up against Jaylen Brown and
you may not
Jason
even
Tatum.
You may not even be able to get past Oklahoma City.
Well, of course not.
Or Dallas.
Well, no, but I'm saying at the end of you got to look at what the end game is here. And then game here is in order to take that step, you have to have these specific types of players that so many other teams have. And while they don't grow on trees and everybody wants those players, everyone else seems to find a way to get those players. And, there's nothing wrong with having a Trey Lyles on your team. But for every Trey Lyles, you got to have somebody who can jump out of the gym and
versatile.
Defend multiple positions outside of the 4 and the 5 and give you something different.
So in the chatty house at youtube.com/ESPN1320, our guy, Dr. David, asked the pertinent question, and it is the next logical step in this conversation. And we're going to continue this conversation with Dr. David's question. If you would like to join the show, please do. 916-909-1320. That's 916-909-1320. It's the Elk Grove Kia Talk Line. Taking your calls and continuing to discuss the NBA trade market and where the Kings fit. Plus, we'll dive into a little bit of NFL. The 49ers play tomorrow. We will dig into some of what lies ahead in week 15? Week 15. Week 15? I think it's week 15.
14.
15, 16, 17, 18. There's 4 games left. It is week 15. Sorry. Preparation, baby. That's James. I'm Kyle. We'll be back in a second. It's ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. Clear.
I'm going to grab a coffee.
Okay.
You need anything?
I don't think so.
I just got shot. That didn't feel good.
Oh, hang on. One last thing. Hang on. Hi guys. Hey, hello. I was locked in. I was getting a bunch of stuff done. What's up, Sass? CJ McCollum? Yeah, I like Josh Okogie a lot. This is yeah. See, okay, hang on. All right, let me. Okay. Then CJ McCollum is down the list of people I want from the Pelicans.
That would be a fun exercise. Who do you want on the Pelicans? Who do you want on?
Assuming Trey Murphy is off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Herb. May 24th is the Seattle show, and then May 28th is the San Francisco show.
Okay, and Zach,
Ooh,
Go ahead.
CJ for sure.
I just like, at what point what other realistic candidates am I looking for? When did I say that Herb Jones was a realistic candidate? I don't think
trading Herb Jones.
They're not trading Herb Jones. I don't think they're trading Herb Jones.
Like, I don't know why you would trade Herb Jones if now you have to punt Zion. Like, all right, if you have to punt CJ McCollum, all right. But I feel like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy would be a really nice like foundation.
Yeah, you gave Herb Jones, he's under contract for $13 million this year, $14 million, $15 million. You got him under contract for 3 years. I don't think they're trading Herb Jones at all. There's no urgency or reason to trade Herb Jones.
The Hawks are absolutely not trading Dyson Daniels.
See, that would be a good one.
Yeah, but the Hawks aren't doing that.
It's okay for the Kings to want Herb Jones. Herb Jones would be a very, very good idea for the Kings to go get, especially a 26-year-old under contract for dirt cheap for the next 3 years. But I don't know how you get Herb Jones.
Okay, here we go. Hour number 2. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're rocking with you until noon. Then we'll hand it off to D'Lo and Casey right here on Sacramento's Sports Leader. A lot of Kings trade talk today. I want to address. I would like to address this issue. No, we were talking at the break, which we do at youtube.com/ESPN1320 and twitch.tv/ESPN1320. We don't really go to break there. The chatty house is popping and we're chatting throughout the break. Herb Jones' name keeps coming up. We're talking trade candidates and trade possibilities and just assets the Kings have and what they need to improve. And Herb Jones' name keeps coming up. And yeah, if Herb Jones is available and the Kings can get him, then yes. But I've not seen anything or heard anything substantial that Herb Jones is available, and I don't know why the Pelicans would make him available.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either. There are people who definitely go out there and say, "Oh yeah, go get Herb Jones," and it's like, okay,
for what?
Why would they trade Herb Jones? They've got not only is Herb Jones 26 years old, but he's under contract. He's barely 26. He's under contract for this year and 2 more years at a totally reasonable rate, like 13, 14, 15.
You can call the Pelicans about Herb Jones and they're going to go, great, we would like De'Aaron Fox. Like that's where that conversation is going to start.
They might literally say, okay, let's talk, but we're talking about 2 first-round picks, and for really a role player and a very, very good role player. And I think a player that for the Kings would make a ton of sense. We talk about Dorian Finney-Smith. We talk about just Jay Crowder.
Mhm.
Like, he's just a younger, more athletic version of
better
both of
version,
those guys. Better, yeah, okay, you can say better, but at the end of the day, like, those guys in their prime were really, really good players as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a better player than what Derek Jones Jr. is.
Mhm.
And like the Kings, the first move that the Kings did when Monty took over this team, the first player that he was in line to talk to open free agency during the very abbreviated free agency window during the pandemic was Derek Jones Jr. He
Mhm.
had him on a call. He got the first Zoom call, and the Blazers were able to close the deal and get him.
Sure.
And that's something that, so we know that there was interest there before in a player
Mhm.
like that. Herb Jones is just like I would say the top tier defensive version of a Derek
Mhm.
Jones Jr. or a Dorian Finney-Smith or
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
3-and-D wing. He would be perfect in Sacramento. 6'8", long wingspan, big time leaper, like just a really, really good player.
I'll also say this too. If you mentioned 2 first-round picks, and you mentioned that in the context of Herb Jones, but I want to remove the Herb Jones of this from the conversation for a minute. If the Kings really like a player, a Cam Johnson, Herb Jones type, not necessarily those guys, but and a team says if there's a player that Monty McNair and the front office believe, okay, this is the player that gets the Kings over the hump. This is the player that gets us to 50 plus wins and into the conference finals. Like, it's this dude. And the team that player is on goes 2 first-round picks. Punt those picks to Narnia, bro.
Okay.
I don't give a damn about picks.
Okay, so I'm with you to a certain degree. I understand.
I want you to be with me to all the degrees. So how do we resolve this?
Here's the problem. It's that right now the Sacramento Kings are 11th in the Western Conference. 12th.
Oh, moving up. Oh,
my bad. 12th. They're a half game out of 11th.
Yeah, they haven't moved because nobody has played basketball in 4 days
yet. But if you were so if I'm Monty McNair and you're sitting at 16 and 19 where the Dallas Mavericks are, and you're the 4 seed, and you see a way for you to go get one of these players that cost you 2 first-round picks, then you're like, I'm all in.
Sure.
I'm all in because what I'm trying to do is I'm going for it. I'm trying to bring in a player that will be here long term, but also that will survive the length of those 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really tough to do when you don't know that, again, like, there are ways to get really impactful players that change the direction of your franchise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even though as much as I love Herb Jones, is Herb Jones a difference between this team winning 43 games and the team winning 57 games? Like, I don't know how big of an impact.
Maybe not 43 and 57, but he could be the difference between 46 and 50.
Okay, but 46 and 50, now you're still talking about a team that's like on the fringe of the play-in, maybe a 6 seed, maybe in the play-in. So, like, whatever that player, if you're giving up 2 first-round picks, knowing that, I don't know, you have a 35-year-old DeMar DeRozan, you have a very big question mark about De'Aaron Fox and what his long-term future looks like. There's all of these aspects to how you're going to build this thing that you have to play. And again, that player has to be really good, because if you're bad in 2 years, in 3 years, and you don't have your pick and you have no way to get better, that's a problem.
But the urgency is such that I get that. I understand that thought process, and I understand why there are teams that are there. But with the Kings, the urgency is such that I'm sorry, if I'm bad in 3 years, I'll worry about it in 3 years. Because this gets to the question that Dr. David asked that we talked about before the break. He said, why would teams give up those type of guys, versatile 3-and-D wings, especially for what the Kings can and would offer? And I think that's a really fair question. I think it's the right question.
Oh yeah.
If you've got a bunch of teams involved for Cam Johnson, I'm just going to pick Cam Johnson because he's the hot name, but pick your favorite player. For Cam Johnson, and the Kings say, hey, here's Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter. I don't know that that's going to be super competitive with what other teams are going to offer. Now, if the Kings come in and go, hey, here's Trey Lyles, Kevin Huerter, and a first-round pick, now I think it gets more interesting.
No, I totally agree.
And that's where. But is Cam Johnson a difference between 46 and 57 wins? No. But you have to have all avenues open to getting better, because the window's now. If you don't go for it now, and great, you have your first round pick in 3 years, but also you miss the playoffs again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a wasted year. You can't waste another one.
No, I totally agree.
In service of something 3 years down the road. I can't be on board with that.
No, I get you, Kyle. I do. I totally understand, and I get why so many people are like on board with whatever it is to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it has to. I want this team to prove that, like, in all honesty, that this group of players is worthy enough of you spending those picks. Because those picks, if this team is not good enough now, and those picks don't get you a franchise altering player,
okay,
then where are you when all of that falls apart?
But this gets back to what I was talking about with the ESPN power rankings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, not that the power rankings, I don't give a rip. I want to get to what Kevin Pelton wrote. And he mentions, like, that 3-point defense, major problem for the Kings. It is the single biggest thing holding them back right now, at least for me.
Okay.
I think offensively, they're going to figure it out.
I would say it's a disparity between made threes and missed threes, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so if I don't think that this group of players is necessarily going to start making a ton more threes. Keegan might start hitting a couple more. Kevin Huerter started hitting a couple more. Okay, that's good. But I think stylistically, I think you're just going to not see a ton of threes night in and night out from this team. You're going to have those games where they hit 19, 20, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're going to have a lot of games where they hit like 8. So I think one of the ways you can remedy that is you can go get a player like Cam Johnson, who not only helps you defensively, but hey, he's a good shooter. He's just that you're adding another quality shooter to the perimeter. And now it just changes the entire complexion of what the Kings can do, so specifically defensively. And that's why I think maybe he holds an outsized value for Sacramento, because, okay, yeah, he can shoot, he can score it, but he's also going to help their single biggest problem,
mm-hmm.
at least theoretically. And that's where I think he may have a NBA wide wins above replacement of 2. I don't know. I don't know. But for the Kings, maybe it's 5, because he can be a difference maker in the area that right now, in both made threes and threes allowed, that is their single biggest problem.
No, I agree with everything you're saying there. I totally agree that he can be a guy that potentially changes,
mm-hmm.
like, that closes that gap almost by himself.
Yeah. I think his impact on the Kings would be different than his impact on the Rockets.
Oh yeah, or the Warriors.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
But again, if you're able to take a guy who's a 41% or 43%, whatever he is right now, 3-point shooter, and on top of that, you're able to get better 3-point defense, and
mm-hmm.
you're able to close this gap of 11 made threes to 15 threes given up,
mm-hmm.
one player could be the difference in closing part of that gap. He is a good enough defender that he can probably save you 1 or 2 of those threes per game.
Sure.
And he's also a good enough shooter that he can add in 1 or 2 threes per game that would close that gap and make you a lot more competitive in that specific area.
That alone, let's say he makes 1 more and stops 2 more throughout the course of a game, then 9 points.
No, I totally agree. I'm on board with that. And I think that there are other players throughout the league that can help the Kings with that specific thing.
We're just to be clear, in case somebody comes in the middle of this, Cam Johnson's just the name we're using.
Yeah.
He is the avatar for 3-and-D wing.
Yeah, exactly. And like, look, I think the problem is at that point you'd have to realize whether this is a player issue, with players not being able to do what we're talking about,
mm-hmm.
Or is it a schematic issue? And then it's like, okay, well, we could have probably got this done by just making the players do something, the same players doing something
mm-hmm.
different, which is what the Kings did last year after the trade, after the All-Star break, and were able to completely revamp their 3-point defense and went from, like, a top, like, 18 defense to like a top 13 defense, but in that stretch we're like the 8th best defense.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they go away from that?
They didn't go away from that.
What
Like
changed?
what they did last year is they did the high five. So that's what they're doing now. It was run and go chest to chest, right?
To high-fiving the three-point shooter, meaning you close out because you're
Yes.
allowed to hit their hand after they shoot it. You can
Now
hit their
that's what the
hand.
Kings
Not
thing
high-fiving
is.
each other.
No, now what the Kings do is they run and they try to high five the shooter, right?
Right.
And that's not what they were doing initially last season. They were running up and chest to chest and stopping,
Getting their
close
space.
out the right way, get in their space, right? So the high five thing is something that if you hit the hand, you're totally fine.
Right.
Even if you swipe from the side and hit their hand on a
Right.
3-point shot, that's legal in the NBA. And so for me, like you saw the improvement at the end of last year. And
so what's different this year then?
well, what's different is you have a different defensive coordinator who's trying to take away passing lanes to protect the middle of the key, because that was the other problem the Kings had.
Sure.
So as much as they gave up 3-point shots last year, as soon as you fix one issue like 3-point shot defense, you're giving up something else. And what they were doing is they started giving up inline drives. They started allow opposing players to get into the paint. Domantas Sabonis started picking up more fouls.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's it's a cause and effect. And this is what happens when you have to choose between two types of players. So like for my money, if you're choosing between an elite 3-and-D guy with a, let's say 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan, his closeout doesn't have to be as aggressive.
Sure.
And he can do both things, right? He can defend, he can get into the passing lane,
right,
and then get out for the closeout. De'Aaron Fox's 3-point percentage against is excellent. He's not the one giving up all the threes. Right. So there is a way in this defensive scheme that you can actually do what we're talking about. You don't really have the players to do that. And so that's where the player swap out might be impactful. But you also, you can make the argument that you have to play your player strengths. And since you don't have the players to do that.
And that's where I come back to. So the Kings would probably argue we are playing to our player strengths because we're clogging the lane, because Domas, for all of his skill set, is not a great rim protector. So they're trying to help him out by clogging the lane. But to me, you're trying to play to your player skill sets defensively, but you're putting yourself at an offensive disadvantage. Given, let's not even talk about makes. It's just the 3-point attempts haven't been up there. So you're just putting yourself at a deficit in that way every single night by changing this defensively to help in the lane. And to me, it's like, scrap all of that. Why would you not just focus on the perimeter and, hey, yeah, let's turn this into a 2-point game? Because I like the Kings' 2 chances in a 2-point game with DeRozan and Fox and Monk and Sabonis way more than I like their chances in a 3-point game.
Okay, because one of the reasons why you're protecting Domantas Sabonis in the key is to avoid him fouling out, so you don't have him as an offensive weapon. And so what you're looking at is you're valuing Domantas Sabonis and his ability to play on the offensive end, and you're protecting him on the defensive end. And that's not because Domas is some bad defender. He's not
a rim protector.
But it's what every team does too. Like Domas tries to get in position, and he's not a bad position defender at all. But what he is, he's not a shot blocker.
Right.
And so, look, Mike Brown will tell you, I've said it forever. Shot blocking, rim protection and shot blocking are two totally different things. If you have the fear of a rim protector, of somebody who's going to swat at a ball,
Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, or even like when we see Rudy Gobert, right, blocks plenty of shots, but it's the fear of Gobert where you see a guard go into the paint, see Gobert, and back out.
Yeah, you see that happen a lot with Gobert, Wembanyama. Pick your favorite interior defender. It's the drive and then the circle back out.
Yeah, even Walker Kessler, right?
Yeah,
you have that type of like, oh, I'm not going in there because he's there. The fear of it is way more valuable than the actual shot block itself, because a shot block is not a true turnover. I would much rather have a big man, a forward who averages 1.8 steals per game than 1.8 blocks.
Yeah,
because steals are true turnover. So anyway, like the Kings still have to fill that void. And again, You're waiting to see if Isaac Jones can be that guy, but that's not where this team is. They're not in a, hey, we're waiting to see mode. And if Isaac Jones is playing 12 to 15 minutes, maybe you can get by, but everybody else has to be a veteran player who's doing the right things at every step of the way, and you're having this guy fly around and swinging shots. That's okay. But you got to have all the pieces in place, and that's where I still don't think this team has all the pieces in place.
Yeah, particularly on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Like that is going to continue to be a problem until they do something to fix it.
Well,
that's why to me, you're pushing your chips in for a 3-and-D wing. Cam Johnson again is the one who's currently in the news the most.
Yeah. You want to make sure that your team is good enough that one player is going to help enough, and that you're not giving up too much on the back end.
Well, if they're not, then you've got a way bigger problem.
No, that's true. And
if you're looking at this team and going, well, we can't give up our 2028 first because we're not sure we're going to be good then like, bro.
Well, that and Kyle, with Cam specifically, he's under contract for 2 more years after this year at a very reasonable rate. It's like it drops to $20 million next year and goes back up to $22 million the year after. If it doesn't work and this thing falls apart, you can trade Cam Johnson again.
Yeah.
And you can trade that might be where the Kings head, where it's not just a Cam Johnson trade. It might be one of the other players that they have that you're like, okay, we're not getting enough, or we're not improving enough, and we're going to have to move player X to go get something different. Yeah. And like that could totally happen. But I also think, lastly, that the biggest thing that the Kings probably have to do at this point is offense always helps your defense. If you're a more efficient offense and you are putting the ball in the basket, it gives you time to set up your defense on the other end. And it's not just like true transition buckets that the Kings lose in, because to be honest with you, Kings have been really good in transition defense. It's the not fully set up points that you give up.
Right.
Or you're just getting into your defense, and all of a sudden they start moving the ball and you're a step slow because you weren't all the way in your defense, and now you're chasing and you're giving up open threes because you're just a step behind. And it might not even be that you're tired or that you play too many games. It might just be that you haven't fully set up your defense by the time they start moving.
Yeah.
And now you're in trouble and you're chasing your tail. And so there's a lot to it. And I don't want to it's not just coaching. It's not just players. It's not just one player can fix it all, because I don't think that that's the case. Everyone has to work together to figure out why these things happen. And then you got to improve. Guys, again, if Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray start hitting their shots, this team looks totally different than it does today. Sure. And that gap that we keep talking about, that 11 makes and 15 given up 3-point shots, that gap goes away if those guys hit. We're not asking, like the Kings aren't asking for 8 more 3-pointers from those guys every night. But if each of them hit 1.5 threes, now you take that more threes than they are today. Those 3 threes put you at 14 versus 15 given up.
Sure.
And the 3-point defense isn't an issue anymore. 3 points, you gave up more than the other team. That's not an issue. It's when it's 15 points or it's 33 points. That's when it becomes a real huge issue.
But this is where, and I don't, it's just funny because I don't think we disagree really, except for how to kind of get to where we're trying to go. I think the Kings' problems are deeper than that. I think it's deeper than, well, Kevin Huerter hits a couple shots and Keegan Murray hits a couple shots, and watch out, because the thing is you need to have that second pitch for when, hey, on this night, the shots aren't falling. In this playoff series, in games 3, 5, and 6, the shot wasn't falling. How do you respond to that? And are you able to go, hey, shot wasn't falling tonight, but you know what? Ratcheted up the defense and allowed 40 points in the second half. And right now, I don't think the Kings can do that. And that's why players like Cam Johnson, we've talked about Herb Jones, who doesn't sound like he's available. It's why his name comes up. It's why Dorian Finney-Smith's name comes up, because they need to be better defensively.
Yeah.
And that's, it doesn't matter what they're doing offensively. They just have to get better on that side.
No, totally. And each of these players that we mentioned, they're good at specific things. Like Dorian Finney-Smith is a very good man-on defender.
Mm-hmm.
Is he as good a help defender as maybe Cam Johnson would be?
Probably not.
Probably not. Like
Yeah.
Cam Johnson is big, but he's also like he's got long arms and he's super fast on the closeout. Like those are the things that you're looking at. Like this specific team, it's not just looking, hey, I just need a better defender. It's like you're looking around and say, okay, I need a better defender, but he has to do this better.
Yeah.
Not just that, he's got to do, you're not looking for the guy to defend DeMar DeRozan. You have DeMar DeRozan. You're not looking for that guy. You're looking for somebody who is quicker on the closeout, quicker to rotate, better, that can defend multiple positions, as opposed to one or two positions, or that you're hiding at one or two positions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wouldn't a point of attack defender take away some of the need to collapse the lane and
sure,
all
unless
that?
you're doing a switching defense and
boy.
the ball's moving and the players are swapping out every time, and so
God, what a tangled web.
yes, exactly.
Hard game basketball.
Yeah. No, it's a lot more complex, and that's what I always liked. Like, I think when we get into full-fledged discussions on this, like there's so much nuance to it. It like you can say just go all in, and I'm looking here saying, hey man, I'm not going all in on a team that's 2 games under 500, 25 games into the season.
Sure.
Like, you show me that you're worth me going out and giving up 2 first-round picks. Show me that the team that I have assembled is going to be good enough that I don't lose my job and regret the decision to make that trade. And it can't be like, well, we need that player first. It's like, no, you guys have had enough players that you should not have lost to Atlanta. You should not have lost to Portland. You should not have lost.
You
to
shouldn't have
Brooklyn.
lost 13 of your first 25 games.
No. And if you take away 3 losses, right? Just that's it. Just take away 3 losses from this Kings team and you put them in the win column. And now you're looking at a team that's 15-10. Right now, 15-10 puts you in the 4 seed, the 5 seed.
Yep.
I would make the move you're talking about. But today, like,
luckily you have until February.
Yeah.
Maybe. Unless one of those guys gets moved before then.
Well, that's the risk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways. There was some other stuff I mentioned that I received an email with some odds on players' next teams. De'Aaron Fox is included in there. And that's become a popular discussion point because De'Aaron Fox didn't sign his extension. We'll get into what that means and what that looks like. Because I think it feels like it's getting a little overblown, but it's also not nothing. We'll talk about it next. He's James, I'm Kyle. The handoff with Kenny Caraway, I believe, today. Coming up in about 20 minutes as well. He's James, I'm Kyle. We're the Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Hanging out till noon here on ESPN 1320 at Sacramento Sports Leader. And clear. A lot of good stuff in the chatty house today, by the way, guys. Really well done.
Okay, so Cam turns 29 in March. And so it's really, this is his 28-year-old season. So we're talking about 28, 29, and 30. It's not, that's why I was looking at this from Kyle. It's not really 32. Like, yeah, he would be 31 at the end of DeMar's 3rd season in Sacramento. But realistically play the entire season next season as a 31-year-old until the very end of the season. So close, but
I also think his game's going to age fine.
Yeah, also he doesn't have the NBA mileage because he didn't get into the league until 23. So, yeah, for a guy who is again, 28 going on 29, he's only played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons in the NBA. He's in his 6th season.
And then we were just talking about?
That's what we were just talking about, Lizzie.
That's why James is hesitant to give up picks, which makes sense. Yeah, that's what I don't know if that's a schematic thing or just not trusting their dudes or what. I also think there's something to this, and I'll just save this for you guys in the chatty house because I want to move on a little bit, but I think that this is always and this is not Kings fans, this is not just basketball fans, this is every sport. Monty McNair might not have a say in if the Kings get to make a trade or not. Like, they might have a deal on the table. They might put out a great offer, but another team might come over the top and just have a better offer.
Mm-hmm.
Or different assets that, if, for example, if the Nets are like, we need to get Jonathan Kuminga in this building come hell or high water, it's not going to matter what the Kings offer. If Golden State's like, yeah, hey, here's Kuminga and other stuff. Just for example.
Yeah.
That's not on money.
Yeah, and I like also Monty he works for somebody. He's not he's not the owner, and that means you got to consider luxury tax. It means you got to consider long-term salary. It means you've got to consider whether your owner is going to allow you to trade first-round draft picks long-term. Like, all of these things are pieces to a puzzle.
Signed off on, yeah.
You have to go pitch this to your owner as much as you have to pitch it to somebody else, especially somebody who's involved. Like, there are owners in the NBA that, like, have no idea
Super
what's going on at all. That's not Vivek.
Can you imagine owning a sports franchise and, like, you get score updates on your phone? That's the extent of it.
That's wild.
It'd be insane.
No, but I mean, there are a lot of owners that are like that, and then there are a lot of owners like the Lake Ups, which, like, there's a Lake Up around every corner. Is the joke? They're everywhere,
littered about the front office.
Yeah, they are very much in it.
Brett, with the all lowercase name, had to go all caps and then explain why he was going all caps. That's great. I love that. All right, here we go.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
He's James, I'm Kyle. I received an email today. I think Kenny, KC, D'Lo and KC coming up at noon. And I think Kenny's in for the handoff today. TBD on that. Either way, the handoff's coming up in about 12 minutes. But I believe he received a similar email during the live show at Sky River last Friday. Shout out to Sky River Casino. Salute. We appreciate y'all very much. I got this email from a offshore sports book called betonline.ag. And they have trade odds for De'Aaron Fox. And it says De'Aaron Fox because he didn't, there's 5 players, and then they explain why each player is on the board. And it says De'Aaron Fox because he didn't sign a long-term extension when he had the chance. And we've gone over a million times the financial reasons De'Aaron Fox might not have wanted to do that. And maybe, who knows how this thing turns out. He said in The Athletic that he wants to win and you got to be taking steps toward that and da-da-da. I think that's true for every player, but this is not like a thing, like an imminent issue, right?
I don't think it's an imminent issue, but like, look, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with him, his family, with what's going on with, I don't know. There's a lot that can happen between now and next summer.
Mm-hmm.
And like his agent, like you go to Clutch and Clutch gets you where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Clutch does. So Rich Paul's people, they literally get you to whatever spot that they think is best for your career. And no one has ever thought that Sacramento is the best for everyone's career because it's just not a big enough market. Now he's got his shoe deal and he's becoming more and more the face of Under Armour, as you know, with Curry.
Mm-hmm.
But the same point, like there are going to be teams out there that want him, and he knows that. It's not just like the Kings are not his only option. And if it's only about money, then yeah, he can sign if he makes all NBA, he can get a Supermax, right? And he can only get that in Sacramento. He can't get that anywhere else.
Right.
But that if he's willing to give up money to go somewhere else, or if he wants to sign a contract and then ask out, like I don't think he doesn't want to go through a rebuild again.
Mm-hmm.
And at least that's where
fair
I would be if I were him as a player.
Absolutely.
And that's a problem for the Kings because you're looking at this situation where, I mean, not to be respectful, but the DeMar DeRozan transaction is a Band-Aid. Like that's a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year team option that you got to pay out like $12 million or whatever. But that's like a Band-Aid move for to try to get you over the hump for a 35-year-old guy. Yeah. And whether it works or not, we'll see. Right. And as of right now, like the team isn't winning. So like, yeah, I think the biggest thing for the Kings is you have to create an environment to where De'Aaron Fox wants to be here long term. And he's been here long enough to know that the only true environment where, you know, he's going to want to be here long term is a winning environment. So how do you get there? And
by trading your 1st-round picks.
So that might be the question, but here's the problem. If he decides he doesn't want to be here after you trade those picks, and you're
now
going through
you're
going through a rebuild, and you don't get 1st-round picks back, that's what becomes a problem. And so I get why he's not listed, why he's listed on these things of, you know, potential trade targets. The reason, I mean, the day that De'Aaron Fox gets traded, in my opinion, will be the day that he tells the Kings he no longer wants to be in Sacramento. And they're not going to trade him to go try to do something different. The reason why you trade him is because he says, "Hey, I'm done. Can you find me a new home?" And that's okay. Like, again, I think a player who started with a franchise as a 19-year-old kid and is, you know, now 27, almost 27. Like there's a point where you've had enough of the ups and downs and the, you know, the losing, to be honest. And you try to be part of winning and it hasn't happened. There's always that possibility that he does hit like a point where it's like, okay, it's just not working. And I don't know if I'm part of the problem or part of the solution, but I know that I can go somewhere else. And I know that you as a franchise can get a whole lot in return for me. So let's just try something different. And I hope we don't get to that point with Fox because I enjoy covering him. I enjoy watching him play basketball. But at the same time, that's always a possibility.
Yeah. Players want to win.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be 28, his contract is up so his contract's up when he's 29. Is that math right?
He's 27 right now. Well, he's 26 right now. He turns 27 in a couple of days.
On December 20th.
Yeah, it's him and Sean Cunningham share
so
birthday.
He turns 28 in the middle of the final year of his contract. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd understand why a player who wants to win goes, yeah, hey, you know what? I have a few years left of being an elite number 1 type of guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it next to a bunch of 19-year-olds learning how to play in the NBA.
I think if you're De'Aaron Fox, what you don't want is to be Damian Lillard, who waited 2 or 3 years too long.
Sure. Yeah.
And so if this is a place where you can win, okay, then that's fine. I'm here.
Mhm.
Let's do this. But if you're not, then like, what am I doing? Like,
Damn.
because look, the other avenue here is if he doesn't make All NBA, but he still has the stats of an All NBA player,
Mhm.
you have to be just straight up and say, okay, is it because of where I play?
Sure.
And is it
Is it costing me money?
I'm getting left out? Well, it's not just money though, Kyle. I mean, he's made one All-Star team, and even that All-Star team, he didn't get voted in, and he didn't get named as a starter. He was a replacement. And so you're stuck with this constant thing of, is there just a limitation to where I live and what I'm doing? If he goes to the Lakers, he makes every All-Star team from then on.
Yep.
You know?
He's an All NBA player doing exactly what he's doing in a Laker jersey.
Oh, totally. And the other, you know what else
Which
he
is dumb.
He's a Hall of Famer in a Lakers jersey making, and that's a harsh reality. So you have to either figure out how to make it in Sacramento, and he's tried that, or like if it goes south, there always comes a point where I don't fault the player. I don't.
No, hell no.
Because I know the one other player that, got to this point and was ready to sign a massive extension and be here forever, they traded him, and he didn't even get the opportunity to get that extension and never got that money.
And didn't ask for a trade.
No. Well, I mean, he didn't ask for a trade with like, hey, trade me.
Well,
But by his actions, he may have put himself in a situation where he knew he would get traded if he,
all right, that's
or,
fair.
so.
The Magic listed as the favorite, by the way, plus 125. That means $100 bet wins you $125. Houston at 5-1.
Yeah. That's where I'm going. Like if you have to deal him, and I don't know, there's all kinds of other dynamics in play here.
That's the other thing about this is it feels like that to talk about this in the correct way with the correct context, you need the context of what the league looks like in a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. And that's so much different than what it looks like right now.
No, totally. And if I'm going to trade, like if there is a moment where he says, hey, I want out.
Right.
Like his people can try to get him to whatever place.
Yeah.
And they're always going to have this thing hanging over them. Like, hey, he's not going to sign an extension here if you trade for him. So they can pull the card that exactly what DeMarcus Cousins' agent
Anthony
pulled.
Davis.
Yeah. When DeMarcus was getting traded to the Pelicans, the reason why Vlade says I had a better trade 2 days ago was because as soon as they informed his agent called the Pelicans and said, do not trade for him. He will not sign with you.
Oof.
And so it went from the Kings getting 2 first-round picks to the Kings getting 1 first-round pick, because that's how they had to complete the deal, because his agent said that they weren't going to sign. So there's always that. But if I'm the Kings and I'm looking around, we already looked at the GM poll. You start looking for teams that have top-end talent that would look really nice on your roster and you could rebuild with.
Yeah.
The top of that list is going to be the Houston Rockets, who has not only have picks, but a bevy of young players that would help. If you're not rebuilding as much as taking a step back a little bit to reboot, but not going all the way back to zero, if you're able to get like a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds, maybe 24-year-olds, and kind of start there, that's a different story.
All right, I want to shift gears here in the final 10 minutes or so. Before we hand it off to D'Lo and KC. ESPN's new NBA power rankings are out. So the Kings sit at number 19. And honestly, I think that's probably fair. Yeah. The Spurs are 18, the Nets are 20. Okay. I think that's probably a fair spot for the Kings right now. Any gripes?
No, you're 12th in the West.
Yeah.
Like, it's on you.
Here's the surprising one for me. You know who's number 17?
No.
The 13-12 Atlanta Hawks.
No.
Look at them go. The Hawks are fun, dude.
There you go.
I'm trying to tell you. All right. I'm going to go to the top here. I just want to run that. I want to run down and take a look around the rest of the NBA. We've been talking a ton of Kings today. We'll continue talking a ton of Kings. Celtics number 1. Makes sense. Cavs number 2. We're in.
Okay.
The Cavs a game and a half ahead of Boston still.
Yeah. They're playing so well.
Until Boston loses a playoff series, though,
No.
Do you know what their big? So the ESPN staff, it's Tim Bontemps, Jamal Collier, Michael Wright, Tim McMahon, Dave McMenamin, Om Youngmisuk, Chris Herring, and Kevin Pelton. Write these little blurbs, and they're writing the biggest issue for each team. Do you know what the biggest issue for Boston is? Elevating their defense.
Oh, they just haven't done it yet.
Right. It's December. They're cruising. Cleveland, free throw attempts per game is their biggest issue. Can you imagine how good your team has to be if we sat here and we turned the microphones on and be like, hey, the Kings need to get to the free throw line more? If that's your biggest issue as a team, we're doing.
If that's your biggest issue, I mean, in the past, the Kings have had that issue, but if it's your biggest issue,
yeah,
that's a problem.
Oklahoma City's number 3. Their biggest issue listed as rebounding.
Well, I don't know what happens with Chet, but
Chet being out is a pretty significant deal there, I'm sure. Dallas all the way up to number 4.
Oh.
Yeah, they got off to a slow start. Luka specifically got off to a slow start. But they're now number 4. The Memphis Grizzlies, number 5. Houston 6. I'm getting to a point here. The Knicks 7. Golden State still number 8. Orlando number 9. Denver number 10. That is so many teams in the West.
Yeah. What are we talking? 7 teams in the West?
Of the last, so outside the top 2, which is Boston and Cleveland. Let's see. Until number 10, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the next 8 teams are West teams.
Yeah, so 6 out of 10 of the top 10 are Western Conference.
Yeah, but the top 2 belong to the East.
Yep.
Which means 6 out of the next 8. The West is a gauntlet, dude.
It is a gauntlet, and look, Memphis is playing extremely well. They didn't look good at all against the Kings, but they find ways to win.
Yeah,
it's because they don't quit playing.
Yeah,
they don't.
Well, and they're a really good example of their biggest issue is listed as 3-point shooting, but they have other clubs in their bag. They can score inside.
Yeah,
they play really gritty, tough defense. They're a really good example of when we talk about Kings trades and who they should acquire, who they need to acquire. Memphis is a really good example of like, hey, here's how you can survive without being a knockdown 3-point shooting team.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like the Cavs, the sneaky thing about the Cavs, because you always think with them, they're like super long, super athletic. They're number 1 in the league in 3-point percentage at 40.4.
It's outrageous, dude.
So in their top 7 guys, right? And even you can throw George Niang in there as their 8th guy. And then their 9th guy is Sam Merrill, and Ty Jerome is their 10th guy.
Ty Jerome, Warriors legend.
Yeah, Ty Jerome right now is shooting 47.1% from 3.
Why not?
But look at Donovan Mitchell, 41.1.
Sure.
Evan Mobley, 40%. Darius Garland, 42.3. Jared Allen hasn't shot a 3. But look, Karis LeVert shooting 48.5%.
On how many attempts?
3.6.
Oh my God.
But that's you get to Dean Wade who is a very good 3-point shooter. He's been a disappointment at 32.9. But again, you get to Isaac Okoro, 46.3% on 2.6 attempts per game.
He's like a 31% shooter for his career.
Absolutely wild just how many layers of shooters they have. And, that's the thing. When 1 or 2 guys go cold, you got to have 3 more dudes that can shoot it.
Do you follow the Chase Down Pod guys? Carter and Justin Cavs-Anada on Twitter?
I don't
know. You follow them on the internet?
I don't know.
They're both great. They host a Cavs podcast called the Chase Down Pod. I'm pretty sure it's now like the Cavs, but I believe it is the Cavs like official podcast. But it feels like every game again, because I'm not locked into Cavs basketball, but I follow them on the internet, so I see their tweets and stuff. Every game, they're like, well, they're not going to shoot it like this again. The next night, well, they're not going to shoot it like this again. Like, hey, maybe they're just going to shoot it like this the entire year. Maybe that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think the whole time you're hoping that the Kings just won't shoot it this bad.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe I'm watching this with purple glasses on, and maybe I'm dumb, but that's kind of what I keep coming back to. I think they need to improve their roster. Obviously, based on the conversation we've had today, I think there's a lot of things they have to do to improve their roster. But on the other hand, I can't fathom a full season of Keegan Murray shooting. What's he shooting now from three? What's Keegan at?
27, 29.
Sub 30% from three. I just can't get there.
No.
I don't think
29-2.
Right, he's not going to do that for a full season. Kevin Huerter is shooting. I know it's better now after the last couple of nights. He's still at 32.3%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a full season issue. Trey Lyles, 33%. I don't think that's a full season thing. Whenever he does come back, like that's what I keep coming back to. Is I just don't, and that's why again, call me at Christmas. We can talk then.
We're getting really close to Christmas though. It's 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
And they only play like 3 times in that time.
No, it's okay. It's post Christmas. That's when call me okay, the season I'm awake, season's up.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep. I'm with you.
Can you post Christmas start turning it around? And I think they will. And I know that makes me sound like, oh, hey, you're just on the, but it's just logical.
Mm-hmm.
These dudes didn't forget how to put the ball in the hoop. I don't buy the same way. I don't think the Cavs are going to collectively shoot 46% from three for an entire year. I don't think the Kings are going to shoot 34.6 for the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get there.
I'm fully with you, Kyle.
Now, defensively, they might give up whatever their
15 threes a game.
They might give up 37% for the season. That might just keep happening. But
but
34.6 number is going to come up. It has to.
It just doesn't matter though. If you're able to close that gap and equal them or come close to equaling them, you're just so efficient at every other part of the offensive game.
Sure.
You know, the Kings have long been a very, very good 2-point team as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even right now, they're third in the NBA in 2-point field goal percentage at 57.7.
Ninth in 2-point field goal percentage against, because they work so hard to defend those shots.
Yeah. And that's good.
It is. Yeah,
they're holding their opponent to 5% less on 2-point field goal.
That's
attempts.
why, dude, that goes again. We're going back to the conversation we were having about their defensive scheme and doing everything they can to clog the lane and take away the twos. Like, no, take away the threes. You want to get in a 2-point shootout with De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk? Let's go.
Yep.
Let it rip, dude. And I'm sure if Mike Brown was here and could tell us straight why they don't do that,
mm-hmm.
maybe I'd change my mind. But from where I sit, and you're just talking numbers, I don't know why you would go, hey, we have this elite mid-range 2-point scoring team. Because how many times have we talked about it after a game? We've gone, man, hey, that stretch where they traded 3 for 2 for 5 minutes was a real problem.
No, I get it.
Make it 2 for 2.
I get it.
Let's see it.
I get it, but I also understand why the Kings are 24th in the league in 3-point attempts at 35 a game, 34-9 a game.
Yeah,
because they're not hitting them. And if I'm a player on the court, I don't care how many times my coach is telling me, just keep shooting. It's like, dude, we're 8 for 32. I do not want to, we're shooting 25% tonight. I do not want to keep shooting. I'm going to get to the rim. I'm going to get fouled. I'm going to get an and one the old fashioned way. I'll get the 3 points, but I'll get it in a different way. I get it. When those shots start falling, the Kings will have no problem shooting 40 of them a night.
No.
At all.
I hope so. I really hope so. That'd be funny. Their 3-point percentage ticks up and they stay 24th in attempts. Sorry.
Yeah.
That'd be great. You said something interesting right before the show. We got to go here in a second, but I just want to acknowledge that you said it. Let me make sure I got this right. You and I are simpatico. Don't trade for Ben Simmons.
No.
out on Ben Simmons. But if Ben Simmons gets bought out,
Yeah, I would say, oh, why not?
yes. Okay, that's it. We talked about this a little bit yesterday.
For free? Like for free? Yeah, go ahead. Give me Ben Simmons for free.
We talked about this a little bit yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I was at. Like, dude, if he's going to you can get him for a vet minimum or maybe a little above a vet minimum.
I'm sitting there, though, the whole time like, okay, is he going to do the right things? And if he's not, I'm punting you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
He's a defender, a playmaker.
Oh, no, he's a great defender still. And at 6'10", he can play the 1, the 2, the 3,
Yeah.
the 4, the 5.
Yeah.
And pass. He can deal it.
And he can pass.
You could run the offense through him when Domas.
He's going to be a Laker, dude.
Yeah, probably.
That's how this is all going to go.
He needs to go hide in obscurity, which is Sacramento. Like, go hide in NBA obscurity and rebuild who you are.
Here's the pitch to Ben Simmons.
Well, hey,
come hang out in obscurity.
You get what the Sac State coach is Australian,
take it to Scandia. Yeah, there you go.
He's Australian.
I'm sure they know each other.
The former head coach was his
oh yeah,
godfather.
Yeah, he's at LSU right now. Yeah, come on.
Yeah,
come hang out in Sacramento for a year, Ben. Rebuild that value.
That's right. On a
vet man.
Anything above vet man.
What's he? He's still young enough. He can go get a big time deal. Help the Kings win some games. Anyways, sure, there's people screaming right now.
So he's situational.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade De'Aaron Fox for him. I'll tell you that much.
That's right.
All right. He's James. I'm Kyle. We're the Insiders. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. We're back tomorrow at 10 a.m. D'Lo and Casey are next. They are going to take you till 4 o'clock right here on ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. Until tomorrow at 10 a.m. Drink water. Be nice, people.